ねえ、君。この辺りに扉はない？
Hello, nice to meet you.
You too. Yeah, this is such a privilege. I'm a huge fan of your work, so I'm
Thank you.
excited to talk to you about this.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Um, First off, like natural disasters and environmental concerns are a running theme through your filmography, and Suzume deals with earthquakes and tsunamis. And just why did you want to highlight that in this movie, and why has this subject continued to fascinate you?
With respect to the most recent three films that I've directed, I think certainly disaster does seem to be a main theme in all of them, but in no case did I set out to tell a story about disaster. Looking at Suzume specifically, I wanted to have this adventure throughout Japan in present day or modern Japan. And as I began plotting it out and developing it, the idea of disaster kept creeping in, and I think part of that is because you cannot tell or look at current Japan without acknowledging the fact that these disasters have happened. So, with the Suzume, the 2011 Tohoku earthquake was a huge part of her journey, and part of that is because I feel we live side by side, and disaster can happen at any moment. So it's about that coexistence.
One of my favorite sequences in the movie is the door closing scene that occurs on the abandoned roller coaster. And just how did you decide on that setting? And like, was it a challenging sequence to storyboard and choreograph that whole chase?
First, this sort of road movie, I wanted Suzume to travel through different ruins. And when thinking about why she had to travel through ruins, looking at Japan right now, there are several areas that have been deserted and turned into ruins, some by natural disaster, other by human influence or by human hands. And I felt the door could be a very strong symbol for representing these ruins. And I wanted whatever our protagonist was doing to represent some kind of action. So this act of closing the door throughout various different ruins is a representation of her journey, and it showcases the different types of doors that she has to close. And with respect to this film, as Suzume travels through this road movie in different locations, she has to encounter this worm. She's fighting this worm at each location. And in some ways, to keep the younger audiences engaged, I almost thought of it like a boss fight in an RPG every time she has to encounter this worm. So when she does make it to the amusement park, I wanted that scene to, and I know it's a very long sequence, but have a lot of movement and be very dynamic. So that had to be reboarded quite a few times before we got the action just right. And of course, that particular scene that you're referring to takes place in a sort of abandoned or ruined amusement park, which, of course, many of those actually exist in Japan. The one in Suzume specifically is fictional, but I referenced several of these amusement parks as we were designing the sequence. And naturally, in these amusement parks, there are going to be roller coasters and Ferris wheels. I'm trying to imagine what kind of action you can do with those. We kind of really expanded and explored different possibilities, and it was a fun process for us as well. And that's how I remember it.
Yeah, it's really, really beautiful.
Thank you.
I really love too that like Sota turns into a chair and becomes this unusual sidekick in the film. But just why did you decide upon a chair of all things? And did you ever consider any other inanimate objects instead?
Well, first and foremost, the 2011 Great East Japan earthquake was a huge backdrop and theme of this film. And had we depicted that in a very straightforward manner, I think that would have resulted in a dark and depressing film. So I wanted something to kind of offset and contrast against that to be Suzume's sidekick. And with the chair itself, I felt that what cute object could we have to be her sidekick that would invoke that type of response. And looking at a chair in its normal state, it has four legs, so you can kind of equate it to a cat or perhaps a dog. And I think that for those reasons, I could see it being animated. But if it did have four legs and it was running around normally like a dog, I think that would take away a little bit from the sort of awkwardness. So in the end, I decided to give him 3 legs, which gave her very unique animation and type of movement. So even just looking at Sota walk around, it kind of invokes a lighter mood and kind of gives this fun, cute vibe.
Yeah. And just last question. Like, I think you've done such an exceptional job getting the cast for this movie, and you have a lot of newcomers to anime voice acting. But the person that you've found for the voice of Daijin seems to be a young actress who's never done any work before. And just why did you come to the conclusion that this character should be voiced by a child, but also discovering this kind of new talent too?
Uh, with Daijin, I believe she was 7-year old, and I didn't go out seeking that particular cast for the role from the very beginning. Rather, we were casting young Suzume and taking in a lot of auditions. And Anne Yamane was one of our auditions, and she had a very unique voice that didn't quite work for young Suzume. But as I kept listening to it, it almost felt like a good, a very strong character and would work for Daijin. So we discovered her through the auditioning process of young Suzume. And with Daijin, there is this certain tension between Daijin and Suzume, where Daijin wants to become Suzume's child. And I feel that that mother-child or parental relationship is also a very strong central theme in Suzume. So, of course, Suzume has the relationship with her own mother who passed away, but also Tamaki, who took her in. And Suzume and Daijin also have this almost parental relationship. And I wanted Daijin to almost invoke that childlike quality to contrast with Suzume's role as almost kind of like a mother figure in this case. So when thinking about the voiceover, having a young child play that role made a lot of sense.
I love that. That's really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, just thank you so much. I truly love the movie.
Thank you.